Virtual onboarding is becoming more and more popular. It allows companies to focus on other areas of the onboarding process and helping the company strive. This lesson looks at the key elements of onboarding as well as personality management. This lesson also explores the impact of mental health in terms of remote working. Welcome back to today's lesson. Even when I worked in an office, I would often bring work home with me. When I started working remotely, it was just a recipe for disaster. Over time, I found two things to be very important. This is a bit of a cliche and everybody says this, but it's really true. Rest is very important and time off is very important. So if we think back to the previous lessons that we've already covered, the importance of finding balance in a virtual world is so important because we're on 24/7. So if we think of interviewing, creating processes, remote teams, onboarding, all of these needs to be balanced in how we introduce it to people, how they will use it, and how effective it will be. So with this theme of going virtual, keep this in the back of your mind as you're creating these different processes and resources. So let's look at today's lesson. Today we're looking at remote team management. The things we're going to cover include the following. We're going to look at virtual onboarding that builds on the terms that we learned in the previous lesson. We're going to look at how to manage different personalities remotely. In Module 1, we covered the differences in different personalities, how to test personality types, and why it's important for managers and leaders to identify personality traits and types. So today's lesson is going to look at why it's so important to understand these types when it comes to remote work. And finally, how remote work impacts your mental health. As we said, we have things like Zoom fatigue, people burning out, people working 24/7. So understanding the impact of mental health is going to give you a key insight in how to better manage your team. So let's not waste any time and look at virtual onboarding. According to Reich, companies are increasingly demanding on worker mobility, investing in remote teams that connect to their homes or anywhere outside of the walls of a traditional office. This paradigm shift brings new challenges in so many business areas, and onboarding is certainly one of them. The creation of effective remote teams within a company is undoubtedly important, and it allows the company to better deal with challenges and better serve their customers. According to Frightway, this takes us to why the role of online or virtual onboarding is 100% essential. The objective is the same if you're in person or if you're working virtually. It is to create a process where people feel invested in, where it creates a sense of loyalty, and having people be active within your company, while still helping them see the company values and help the company grow. But the online method has a key difference. The way you welcome and communicate with the people that you're onboarding is different. You're going to do it through the virtual platform, perhaps through immersive activities that creates a very close environment, even though the distance is so far. Companies and employees are embracing remote work. The movement is the reason why the shift is so needed. The idea of a traditional office is not that appealing anymore. And as we see the world changing, remote work doesn't seem like an option anymore. It seems like something that companies have to plan for, be proactive with. So that is why this theme is so important. Regardless of where you are in the world, being proactive gives you the edge in business. So let's look at the virtual onboarding process. According to business, one of the most important decisions that managers and leaders found is changing their one-day program and spreading it over a week. This allowed for people to understand the information a lot more effectively. After a typical on-site boarding process, a company is sending new hires into an office where they will be embraced by new colleagues, eager to meet them. But the 5-day program creates an intentional plan for regular check-ins and touchpoints to make sure new hires don't feel forgotten and overlooked. Because you are doing it virtually, you don't have that personal touch that you would in person. So you have to accommodate the changes and spread it out over time. So ideally on day 1, you want to create a welcome program that's about a 1-hour live session. This makes the employees feel like they have a lot of information. Then on day 2, you can have a check-in where you discuss the materials that you sent them. Day 3, you can have an executive or team leader check-in. Day 4, you can have something fun, maybe activities that they can do and things that they can find online. Day 5, you can use to see how they are engaged, how they found the process, and if everything is working. You can also ask them to join a group, have discussions with their colleagues to ensure that they are connecting. So this is just an example of what it would look like if you spread a one-day session over 5 days, and you can add different programs, ways for people to connect, and materials that they can review. In brand new situations, and nearly everyone feels this, people feel vulnerable. A new hire can feel the same anxiety and feelings that they would at school. That's why it's important to ensure that you have a process to make sure that they feel informed. And that's where communication comes in. Normally, a manager can make frequent stops at a new hire's desk to see how they're doing. Now, managers can stay connected through email, chatting, video conferencing, communicating using different methods and platforms to ensure that the person feels connected. Because there's no person-to-person connection, making sure that you are connecting virtually is very important. For example, new hires at LinkedIn will hear from the person who hired them. They will also hear from their manager and their buddy assigned to them to make sure that they feel like they are fitting in and that they are getting the information and support that they need. Next up, new hires at LinkedIn used to get their laptops in person during the employee orientation. Members of the enterprise productivity engineering team would hand them out and then make sure everyone's computers were configured correctly. Now, laptops are shipped directly from the supplier to the new hire's home. Earlier this year, employees asked its technical team to make it possible for company-specific software and programs to be loaded remotely. So you can see that a company like LinkedIn is being very proactive, that they make sure you get the equipment that you need, that everything is loaded, and that you get the support that you need. So it's just a simple switch. Instead of getting it in person, it's getting it directly from the supplier and then having an IT team who can team view your computer, install the programs that you need, and that you have that IT support even though you're not in the office. When it comes to keeping employees happy and engaged, company culture is king and queen. A LinkedIn survey of over 3,000 US professionals found that 70% said that they would leave a leading company if it had a bad culture. Some 71% said that they would take a pay cut to work for a company that shares their values and has a mission that they believe in. That's why company culture should be at the front line of the onboarding program. That's how people get excited about the company. That's how people talk about the company cultures and values. And that's why on day 1, the first session that you have needs to be about culture. It needs to be going over the company mission, vision, values, products, and the company history, how you overcame different issues and where you are now. Continuing on, let's look at more topics related to the virtual onboarding process. So the idea is to make this process very interactive. In a successful onboarding orientation, new hires not only get to know the company, they also get to know one another. So keeping that interactive nature in the back of your mind, Zoom is a great way to break into groups. It's a way for people to interact, the new hire to see the way that the group interacts, and for them to meet different people. So you can make it interactive where people can be assigned projects, can be assigned to have discussions, and you can do this in maybe your morning meeting. Before you start your day, you can have a group session where people can discuss problems, come up with things as a group, and it's a great way to make it interactive and for the new person to feel like they are contributing and that they are part of the team. So let's say on day 1, they break into small groups and discuss questions. What are you most excited about joining the company, or what do you think will work and not work? Maybe on day 3, after new hires have heard from executives and leaders, they can break into groups with other employees and colleagues to talk about what they thought about the meeting, what they thought about the leadership approaches and the executives. And they can also ask questions to the employees that have been with the company for a long time. Orientation laptops are only part of most companies' broader onboarding efforts. Hiring managers are central to new employee success, integration into the company. What managers are expected to do hasn't changed really, but it's now shifted to being more virtual. So for example, LinkedIn provides hiring managers with videos and resource guides on how to onboard new team members. For the moment they are hired throughout the 90-day cycle when they just start the company. Even before a new hire's first day, a manager should have sent them an enthusiastic message to say welcome to the team and we are so excited to see you. Then send the information off to IT so that they can get the equipment and get the programs that they need. So as you can see, managers and leaders are involved in onboarding their employees, even though the HR team set up the entire process. Next up, okay, so let's look at another example from LinkedIn. The final event of a new onboarding program features an expert from LinkedIn's benefits team in an Ask Me Anything session. But it doesn't conclude the program. Friday also includes 2 emails that concludes the week. The one will go over a recap, everything that was covered, and the other one will ask for feedback. So again, if you think of that, instead of having a 1-day program, splitting it up into 5 days. So this refers to the last day. Virtual onboarding is a new process. So 1, you need to get feedback from the person you just onboarded and make sure that the information is up to date, that the resources are working, and the platforms that you want displaying the onboarding on is effective. So getting great feedback is a way that you can improve this process and make it better for the next group of trainees or new employees that you have to work with. So let's look at virtual onboarding examples. So this is an example of what another company did, and they also split up their virtual onboarding process. So the previous one, we had an example of a 5-day system. This one, we're going to look at a bit of a different approach to see what they did. So the pre-arrival, they had to send out the equipment, things that people needed. It was thinking of who's setting up the equipment, who's helping with the programming, and all of the resources that the person needs. Then when welcoming, send an email to your new hire that includes how they will get their equipment, steps to set everything up, their login details, when they will meet with everyone, meeting links, numbers, all of that so that they know what's going on. Then give them their day 1 and 2 agendas. So day 1, ideally you're going to set up everything IT related. And the IT team will install programs, softwares, everything that the person needs to really get started. Next, we want the manager and the employee to have one-on-one time. So you can send a link to the new hire for a separate meeting. So you can have a quick check-in to make sure that they understand what's coming up the next couple of days and that they feel that they have you as a touch point as the manager and leader. Then finally, it is lunchtime. Here you want to schedule a team lunch for introducing everyone to the new team member. You can play a fun turn-based icebreaker game like we mentioned in the previous lessons. Just for everyone to get to know each other, you can ask a few fun questions or you can play a game. It's just for the new person to feel welcome and for the team members to actually interact with this person and not just say hi and leave afterwards. Then let's look at how would you schedule your week 1 and 2 onboarding. Here we'll have 2 parts. So you want to look at the company orientation and then the team and social orientation. For the company orientation, you want to look at things like the company mission, vision, values, the culture, social norms, dress code, and expectations around working hours. You can also talk about the organization structure, business reviews, the team and job orientation. You can also look at job descriptions, company calendars, and technology overview. Then when we look at team and social orientation, this is more about getting to know everyone. Here you can assign someone a buddy system and you can talk about the members of the team and also look at the executive and leadership team of the company. Make sure that people feel like they are included. So again, making it personal. The new candidate can join different meetings and they can also sit in to ensure that they have a good feel for how the company is running. Then finally, an onboarding program doesn't just stop after week 1 and 2. It continues until the new hire is able to execute their role and their responsibilities. This is just the starting point, and out of this, you have to build a comprehensive system. Like we said in the previous example, LinkedIn has a 90-day onboarding process, and we talked about the first few days. Here you can see they use a week 1 and 2 approach instead of using the 5-day system. So it just depends on your company, the needs of the company, and how long you have to execute a program like this. So next up, we're going to look at how to improve your current virtual onboarding process. According to Global, when working in a virtual environment, it's so much easier to miss details. This problem gets even bigger when you have new employees who are trying to absorb all of the information you've given them in such a short period of time. Create a detailed guidance list where you can give them links, overviews, descriptions, and you can refer back to this in all of your meetings. You can give them a guide on where to find links, where to find training material, what everything means, so they always have this one document to refer back to. Create a list of self-study items, which will include documents, articles, website, competitors' information, and allow for the person to go over this. You can give them self-study time during the day that gives them time to take a breather and work on their own. It will help people to refocus, and it will also give them a bit of empowerment as they are in control of a process that you assign to them. Let your new employees get an early interaction with essential members of your team. So it's great to make sure that they can, one, speak to you, speak to different team members, and create a process for that. So if they feel stuck, they can go to certain people, they can always contact you, and if you are not available, tell them where to go. So if you don't have FaceTime right now, make sure that you have a system in place that you can help employees do this. Give your employees a list of crucial members that they need to work with outside of your team. So give them the list of IT people to contact, a list of managers, people who control quality. It's just making a list so that they know who to go to and when. Sometimes managers and leaders can forget, and they can tell them, oh yeah, just go to IT. But the new person doesn't know who you are referring to and how they would go about that. So being proactive in the way you introduce people and creating a list of where to go and when is a great way for people to feel like they have, again, a bit of control because they have the information that they need. Lastly, if you don't have this in your team right now, get started. Make sure people are connecting. People have smaller groups. So let's say you have a big team. You have about 20, 30 people in your team, and every morning you have a Zoom meeting. It's 30 people that you have to discuss with, 30 people with opinions and things that they want to share. It can be too much. So break it up into smaller groups where people can connect, where people can have actual discussions and give agenda items. So make sure that when people are connecting, they have a reason to connect and that it is structured. So with that, let's look at some virtual onboarding tools to consider. So according to Time Doctor, new startups and small businesses love this free tool for its HR automation, especially remotely staffed companies who don't have capital for a big HR team. The software provides fully featured HR solutions, including payroll, management benefits, productivity insights. On the employee side, users can instantly say their pay rate, they can see their pay stubs, paperwork, and it gives them a lot of benefits. So here you can use it to go over what the company does. It can give them all of their training support, and you can host everything here for free. So this is one aspect of the onboarding that you can automate, even though it doesn't give you a full platform to create an entire process. You can use the software to send the employee offer letter, and you can use it to create tax documents and use it to create a full onboarding process. This will also help you to manage time off, payroll, and you can initiate employee surveys and track key engagement metrics through the app. So this is a great way to automate a lot of the processes to get more information, and it can help you to create an onboarding system. So this program aims to help you automate any workflow in your company, to the development lifecycle to employee onboarding. Users can choose from over 50 pre-programmed workflows, things like sale invoices, employee onboarding, refund requests, or marketing campaigns. From here, you can create custom forms and workflow diagrams and set permission for each step. After you initiate workflow, it's easy to see what has been completed and to review workflow processes. So this is a great one. It's going to give you a template. You can use it. You can see the flow of information and you can see what has been completed. I think if you've not created an onboarding process before, getting a template will help a lot, and then you can use it to learn. Next up, If you want to use an HR all-in-one platform that is really user-friendly, this is the option for you. The all-in-one platform for onboarding new hires and managing employees is designed for small to mid businesses, making it a great tool for smaller businesses that may have remote workers. The easy-to-use, powerful technology behind the software allows you to look at payroll, benefits, and time off. The company claims that 75% of clients say Namely has increased employee engagement, and 72% say it's made employees more productive. So definitely want to go check out, go look at the reviews and see if this is something that you want. For all of these and the one coming up next, make sure to go check out the features on YouTube. You can look at a basic tutorial to see if this is something that you like or this is something you want to give a miss before signing up and doing all of the paperwork or signing up for a free trial. This software streamlines your onboarding process, which is something that we all need. This software tracks candidates throughout the hiring process, as well as assign pre-interview tests. Potential employees can even upload videos in addition to documents. The app serves as a learning tool for your employees. You can create learning plans for each team member and provide important work knowledge for your team. This makes it easier for employees to learn, to know what's happening in the business and what is up for offer. This is a great tool, so you can see the entire recruitment cycle, who you are recruiting, the tests that they took, all the documents related to them, and then move to the onboarding cycle. So another really great app that you can go check out, and based on these you can have a look. Again, you are not limited to just these, you can always do your own research. I think we really have a few good ones here that you can go check out. Before we move on, I just want to give you guys a quick sneak peek of what is coming up in the next lesson. In lesson 4, it's all about psychological safety. We're going to go over what this term means and why you need it in your team. I'm going to give you key elements to create your own workshop. This is going to be a theoretical and practical lesson because I'm going to show you a workshop that I already did with my team previously, and I'm going to tell you what happened with it. But for now, let's go back to managing different personalities. So the thing is, people are impacted differently when working remotely. Some people love it and they thrive in it. Others struggle, and the struggle means they have mental health issues, they're struggling to complete work, and they're not getting through the day. So we need to understand what personality types work really well with remote work and which ones struggle. And we have to understand the elements that comes with remote working. So as you can think, extroverts and introverts, they deal differently with remote working. So according to Recruiter, it seems that it isn't introverts and shy lone wolf types who make the ideal virtual working personality as you might expect. Actually, extroverts, curious social types thrive more in virtual working situations because they are able to form the necessary connections to avoid the isolation, and they can collaborate effectively through virtual working scenarios. I read a few articles here. Some said it's better for introverts, some said it's better for extroverts. I think it comes down to the type of extrovert, the type of introvert that you are. You might fall into being an extrovert, but there are subcategories within that main category which will indicate which type of extrovert you are. And we can see that through the types of personality tests and how the combinations work. So as you can think, organized employees thrive. If you are organized and you're able to manage your own time, your own resources, you'll be able to work remotely. If not, the employee will need a lot of structure. If there's no way around working remotely for that employee, you as the manager and the leader, you will have to structure the resources and help the employee be organized. Research from Global Integration has illustrated that virtual teams are uniquely interdependent in the way they share common goals and responsibilities, but team members need to be self-reliant and self-motivated. As a result, people who can operate well in interdependent work relationships will thrive in virtual working environment. So keep this in mind if you look at the different people that you have in your team and which ones will be able to do this and which ones will not. Next up. The global integration research shows that being comfortable with ambiguity is a key requirement of virtual working. Workers who enjoy receiving firm instructions and working on tight schedules will struggle with a virtual working environment. which draws heavily on personal initiative and independence of thought. Finally, global integration found communication skills to be essentially important because virtual working relies heavily on well-written and easily comprehended communication. Any limitation on a worker's communication skills will reduce their ability to work effectively in a virtual setting. So let's just have a quick recap of leading different personalities. So the key essential thing is know the types. So as we said in module 1, use different personality types to identify your extroverts, your introverts, and then the subcategories that will help you identify the needs of your team. Once you have the personality type, you'll be able to know your team. This means that you know their personality types and you will have a better sense of your team makeup. Which employees are more extroverted, which are more introverted, which personality types will clash, and why. Your team members are like puzzle pieces and part of your team, and you need to figure out how they fit and how they can work together. Because you know the type of personalities, because you know them more extensively, this means you are able to identify their needs. You can sit down and understand the needs of your employees based on their types and what you've discussed as a team. You can think of, does this employee need more structure? Do they need more autonomy? Do they need more private time? Or do they need more team collaboration? This helps you create a better team environment and an environment based on individual needs. Okay, next up, we're going to look at each personality type and how they cope with remote work. Guys, this is based on the Myers-Briggs personality type. If you've not taken the type, I recommend pausing the video here, taking the test, and then coming back to it. Or you can watch the video through, then come back to this section and see in which category you fall. I'm going to tell you the categories and then the personality type that fits within that. And then afterwards, we're going to discuss it in a bit more depth. So first off, the guardians. So here we're going to see the following personality types. Next category, the rationales. Here we see these types. The artisans. Here we have a mix of introverts and extroverts as with every other one. And finally, the idealists. Okay, so now that you know in which category you fall, we're going to look at the elements that goes with each category. So the guardians. So here you can see your personality type. The guardians are disciplined people and they have amazing organization skills. If you fall within this category, you are also wonderful at self-motivation, which means you can cope just fine with a short period of home working. The biggest challenge will be coping with less than seamless working environments when you're working remotely and dealing with people who may not share your incredible work ethic. So here are your working from home survival strategies. Get organized. This is something that you naturally do, but by spending a few hours on technology and systems can help you relax and make sure that you can go back on each issue. Next up, create a work dedicated space. This will help you thrive because you have a space where you can work, and avoid working from your bed or sofa, as that can get frustrating. And then when you have to spend leisure time in that area, you'll feel frustrated. Sticking to your routine is a great way to make sure that you feel sane. Get up, get a shower, get coffee, get some exercise, and make sure you are consistent with that routine. Also make sure that you have a 1-hour lunch. Set in clear boundaries with your family members. Make sure that you have time away from them, that you can get everything organized. And then finally, set the tone. Guardians are wonderful mixes of efficiency, organization, loyal and supportive employees, and they are also natural communicators. That is why setting the tone is so important. Flex your leadership skills by scheduling regular check-ins and support others who may be having trouble figuring out how to create tasks. Next, for the rationales. Rationales have a big tolerance for change and chaos, so the prospect of working from home doesn't really scare them. In fact, you may relish the opportunity to set things up in your way instead of bending to your organization's system. I'm guessing the introverts among you, specifically the INTJs and INTPs, already spend most of their time away from work at home, so this isn't really a big change working from home more often. So here is your survival kit items for working from home. Keep moving forward. The idea is that don't get stuck on something, because you can get stuck on it and you will get frustrated. So the idea is have your task. As soon as you're done with it, move on. If you constantly work at it, you will get frustrated. Develop a FaceTime system for your fellow workers. So this is more for INTPs and ENTPs. Checking in with the team keeps you accountable for goals, and you might drift off if you are not accountable because you have too much freedom. So it's creating a system where you have to check in to make sure that you are getting things done. Set goals to feed off and standards to perform against. So for rationales, it is important to have a standard to set goals and then to achieve it. Without it, they can feel like they don't have. Without it, perhaps your impatience with a slow-moving task will make that you lose interest and that you don't want to do it anymore. So allowing that will keep you on track. Stick to a routine, but don't get too rigid. Because rationales can work so quickly, they might find that they are not sticking to a routine or not completing the full day's hours. Lastly, be conscious of others' feelings. This might come easy for the other types of personalities, but for the rationales, this is not something they thrive in. I'm not saying that that is the case for everyone within this category, but it is something to keep in mind. Everyone else might not be as comfortable as you are with remote work, so please keep that in mind and be sensitive. Use your empathy here as a way to solve this issue. Next up, the artisans believe that variety is the spice of life, so let's not sugarcoat it. We're going to have a shocking time working from home in the current climate. Artisans who routinely work remotely have their fun through sports, hobbies, and social time with friends, but social distancing and working remotely will not stimulate them. The challenge is managing your need for spontaneity and finding fun in structure and isolation, so this is not an easy one to overcome. Your survival kit items include the following. Make sure that you are setting deadlines and notice immediately when there is a gap in your performance and the goals that you have to set. Artisans are excitable, impulsive, and spontaneous, which is great when you are holding a motivational meeting or using your irresistible charm to sell ice to an Eskimo. But it's not so great when you're trapped at home or you're working remotely. Without variety, these employees and people will feel like they are stuck and that they are isolated. The solution? Do things where you can have brain breaks, go for a walk, do laundry. Don't get stuck in doing the same thing all the time. Reach out to others if you feel lonely. Artisans thrive on relationships, so instead of relying on email, make an effort to call or video chat with coworkers. So if you have an employee like this, make sure you are reaching out and connecting with them so that they don't feel isolated and alone. So for this personality type, they have a tendency to take shortcuts and use the smallest effort possible to get tasks over the finish line. So again, this is not for everyone, but this is a known characteristic for these types. So be accountable, make sure that you are getting the job done. Then you thrive on results and you do not like it when you are not recognized. So it's not easy for others to show their appreciation or even notice when you're doing something for someone else. So try treating yourself with a little reward when you complete a mundane task or troubleshoot a major problem for your team. It's just making sure that you feel rewarded for yourself and that you can keep going. Finally, the idealists work best when they have full autonomy over their work style and schedules, and they feel constrained by structure. For this reason, you will love being left alone and to your own devices when working from home. The challenge comes in from the lack of human contact. You will miss being able to talk to people informally, and losing those in-person connections is going to be tough. So here are the survival approaches for this type. Lean on phone and video calls over email. Establish a rapport is very important to assure that you are still getting a human interaction even though you don't have that face-to-face time. Get super organized. The tip for more idealistic perceivers, which would include the INFP and ENFP, will enjoy novelty to the point where they quickly lose enthusiasm, so make sure that you have the organization needed, and if you don't, ask a manager or leader. If you have an employee like this, structure is ideal. Be social while social distancing. So making sure that you have regular check-ins, that you have virtual lunches or coffees or water cooler discussions will help these individuals overcome the isolation of working remotely. Ask for help when you need it and don't be shy. Everything is a lot for people to handle at different situations, and working from remotely can affect that as well. So asking for help is a great way to overcome this, making sure you have a soundboard and making sure that you have a way to communicate with others. Finally, cut yourself some slack. You're passionate about supporting people through difficult situations, and you're doing your very best to help your employees. People love that you are supportive and that you want to help everyone. But your tendency to be hard on yourself about your productivity level to the point where you are not productive is not good. So idealists, it's essentially that you cut back and that you give yourself enough slack to get everything done. So there you have it. We have the 4 categories for the different personality types. Again, if you are not sure what this is, go back to the Myers-Briggs personality test, take the test, and it will give you your code for your personality test. You can see in which category you fall, and then the coping strategies that will help you when dealing with remote work. And all of this information was gathered from Trinity.com. It's a great site that helped us to understand the different personalities and how everyone can better thrive in remote working situations. So with that, let's have a look at how remote work impacts your mental health. Many employees in the upcoming weeks may experience unanticipated mental health consequences from mandated remote work, and it's important to be cognizant of this reality. 2 causes for concern are isolation and burnout. So let's look at these 2 categories in a bit more detail. Isolation occurs when employees are not getting that face-to-face time, so they're not interacting with their managers or leaders, with customers, or with their fellow colleagues, and as a result, they feel isolated, and this isolation takes a toll on their mental health. Burnout is when employees are working 24/7, and as we said, because we're working remotely, there doesn't seem to be that work-life balance. This directly impacts our burnout levels because you feel like you always have to be on, you always have to serve the company, be ready for customers, and be ready for all meetings. This causes a lot of burnout, and employees' mental health will suffer as a result. So how can companies better support the mental health of remote employees? Well, mental health benefits. This means creating strategies and policies and benefits that the company offers employees. So you can speak to a counselor, you can speak to someone within a company. More importantly, including mental health services in your employees' benefits will help your employees overcome these issues. These are things like employee assistance plans that will help them to get support from a group or counselor, mental health coverage, substance abuse coverage, mental health information sessions in the workplace, and stress management programs, which we already covered, and that is something that managers and leaders can also develop for their employees. Next, 20% of remote employees cite loneliness as their biggest struggle when working from home. Without having to leave your house for work, people feel like they are not interacting and they feel isolated. So a great way is to use technology to overcome these issues, creating video conferencing where people can have lunches, connect with their coworkers. So a company can create spaces and events where people can come together, brainstorm, do activities. So these things will help employees feel more connected in tough times. As mentioned above, remote employees shouldn't just communicate with their teammates with work-related questions. So the idea is for companies to create social events where people can have more time. So these can be something like cooking or baking together, watching a specific show, doing an outdoor activity, specific sports, talking about a restaurant. So you can really be creative and really think of great events where people can come together and just talk and forget about the issues that they're facing and just come together as a group. Remote employees' mental health may suffer if they feel isolated for too long. Going days without communication with a teammate or family members can leave people feeling confused, unmotivated, and their mental health will suffer. So the idea is to keep a regular loop of check-ins. So creating a system or a process where you can have check-ins with them, and if you are not able to do so as a manager and a leader, create a system where people can speak to their colleagues and with other people who are going through the same thing. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. That brings me to our housekeeping slides. Then for today's lesson challenge, I think a big decision here is going to be if you should keep your onboarding in person or if you should switch to a virtual platform. So for today's lesson challenge, think of a way that you can switch from in-person onboarding to a virtual space. You can also start researching and Googling the different platforms that we discussed or look for alternatives. Bring that back to your team as it is a great way to overcome the challenges that we mentioned. Then well done for completing lesson 3. In lesson 4, we are going to continue with this theme and we're going to talk about psychological safety as part of mental health requirements. Thank you all for sticking around and I will speak to you in the next lesson.